Out of the academy, I was assigned to the Grafton Barracks, and while I was there, I participated in controlling or prohibiting bad behavior in the schools in South Boston. We would drive in and be bused to the various South Boston schools and given assignments in the corridor and outside of classrooms and that kind of thing. Also, while I was at Grafton, then Staff Sergeant Canty assigned me or recommended me to a 125-man group of troopers that trained at Fort Devens in case of a riot at Walpole State Prison. And then I think it was in May of '73, I got a call in the early morning hours and sent to Walpole. But because of the urgency of the assignment, we didn't work as a team. I remember marching in to a burning building where the inmates were chanting and yelling and thinking, what am I doing here? and there were cameras, recording us going in and so forth. And I was also assigned to the 55 team. One of the captains asked me if I would go on it. And while I was on that 55 team, I worked with one of my former instructors, Dick Hiller. He was also on the team, and I got to know Richard Hiller, pretty good. I ultimately asked to come off it because I wanted to do more than write tickets. So I went back to Grafton, and that was pretty much what I did during the 6 years I was in uniform. In 1978, I got a call from now Lieutenant Colonel Canty. I had the desk and picked up the phone and he goes, "Bobby, where would you like to go?" And I said, "Well, Colonel, I'd like to go into BIS." So he said, "Don't say anything to anyone. I'll speak to Colonel O'Donovan and see what I can do." And so it was after the blizzard of '78, maybe a few weeks after that, that I got a call that I had been assigned a major crime in Boston in a unit that worked directly for Colonel O'Donovan. And what I learned was we were basically spare parts. If they needed someone to fill in at an autopsy or participate in a raid, or there was something he wanted done, we did that. And it was, right in there. But one of the troopers that I knew that had been on the turnpike gave me his turnpike pass. So I used that for a period of time until one day I handed it to one of the toll tellers and he said, "You don't look like Robin Monroe." I said, "He doesn't think so either." He took my pass. And then in about, I would say September of '78, like I said, I wasn't in major crime very long. I asked Sergeant Matthews, who was like our executive officer, if I could be transferred to Worcester CPAC, and he said he would check and see. And I think it was in October I got transferred to Worcester CPAC. And from there I was 11 years doing investigations for the Worcester County DA's office until I got promoted, which I think was in 1989. I was promoted to corporal, and during that time, probably by 1990, I had been promoted to sergeant because of the consolidation. So, I had taken one exam, and the sergeants on the MDC, had taken one exam. So they, developed a list of seniority based on when you took the exam, I guess. and I was initially a patrol. Well, when I got promoted, I got transferred to the Springfield Barracks from Grafton, and that was in the middle of a roundabout. I think it's probably still there, and I didn't get to see much of the area, except maybe 91 when I was going up to their headquarters. But I was there maybe 3 or 4 months, and I made a call to one of my friends who had a brother that was on the job, and they got me back into C Troop. And so I was a patrol supervisor, and then ultimately I worked as second in command at the Grafton Barracks under Jack Crawford. He was the lieutenant. And I had worked with Jack in Worcester CPAC. He was assigned there for a short time, and Jack and I had gone on renditions, together. I remember one where we went to California, and we stayed at the Marina del Rey Beach Hotel and ate in a gourmet restaurant. And another time we went to the Catskills in New York, went up in an elevator to Whiteface Mountain, and then went to the place where they had set it up for the Winter Olympics, and we did an interview, which is now a minimum security prison, and we did an interview there. So those were 2 of the times I remember doing something with Jack, but I've always stayed in touch with him. He had come down to Bridgewater and seen my home in Bridgewater, and so I was talking with him after I did the interview, or not interview, but gave the statement to the parole board in the George Hanna case. So we touched bases again after that, and I got the Amica job while I was still a trooper by running into Art Ryle, who was an FBI agent in charge of the Worcester office. And Art had always been someone that I had a relationship with, and I asked him, if you hear of any insurance company that's looking to hire, I'd be interested. And about maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, he called me and told me that Amica was interested. Do a short summary of your career. So I did a page worth, sent it to them. I went in for an interview and they hired me, and I worked for them for 12 years. And some of that time was with Art. We did things together. But he ultimately, I don't know the reason, but didn't stay with them that many years. And he was working with the Shrewsbury police, doing things for them. He'd call me occasionally because as an insurance investigator, you had access to things that even the police didn't have access to in the registry, and he would call me to find out, who owned the car before and where it was now, and that kind of thing. So I would do that for him, and I ultimately went to his funeral. Sad to see him go. He had moved to Florida at that point and was 80 years old, and just had a heart attack and dropped. I was with the 55th RTT. We went into the academy in June of 1971, and we would have graduated in September of 71. And when it was the new building that they had built to replace the Quonset huts. So we were the first class through what was the new academy after they had done away with the old Quonset huts that had been the academy before that. And the commandant of the academy at that time was Captain Charles Gilligan, who was a very polite, gentlemanly commandant, and I felt that he ran the academy in a very official, business-like manner. and all the instructors we had were very good. All of them, I think, were looking out for our welfare, to make sure that we didn't injure ourselves, and if we were injured, we got treatment. During that time, I never had an injury that stopped me from going through. Also in that class was Staff Sergeant J.V. O'Terry, Staff Sergeant R.J. Fitzgerald, Corporal R.E. Hunt, who was the drill instructor, and he'd been a Marine Corps drill instructor. He had a sense of humor that came in from another direction. He was funny, but he was also scary. And then there was R.J. Walsh, is a trooper, R.E. Hiller, J.B. Sobrera, W.F. Grant, and R.E. Dunn. And during the time I was in the academy, I was aware that Walsh was someone that my Uncle Fred knew, because he knew Walsh's father. My Uncle Fred was a BC graduate, and Walsh's father was one of his instructors at BC in the 30s. So after we had been gone for a few weeks, Walsh approached me and asked me to meet him in the back of the building on Fridays, and I would take him home to Bridgewater. He didn't want anybody else to know that I was doing that. He always got in by himself, but I took him home most weeks. And while I was going through the academy, I had the number 2 physical fitness score. The only person that was higher than me was a trooper that had been in the Marine Corps, and he did pretty well. Also, I shot expert and got my expert pin in there. My father had bought me a .22 Harrington and Richardson target pistol, probably when I was about 15, just starting high school. And he brought me to a person that he knew. It was Percival Newton Churchill, and he told me that Percy was a World War I Army colonel. I found out later he wasn't World War I, he was World War II, but he's the man that taught me how to shoot. And he was a paratrooper, and I found the unit he was in, and like I said, he was a lieutenant colonel, and he taught me how to shoot with both eyes open. He taught me grip, trigger squeeze, and sighting. And the way he taught me to shoot with both eyes open, he cut a hole out of a playing card, put it on the end of the barrel, and as you looked down the barrel, you saw the sights that were blocked with your right eye, and you looked by with your left eye and saw the target. And pretty soon after doing that, you didn't need to use the playing card anymore. And it was advantageous to be able to shoot with both eyes open. And I remember during the academy standing probably within 7 feet of the target. I could do what Corporal Hunt could do. I could put all my bullets in something the size of a quarter. One of the cases, I called it my most interesting. And I called it my most interesting because it was a case where Worcester CPAC worked directly with the FBI and the Milford Police. It was the murder of Sergeant Walter Conley in Milford in, I believe it was 1982. Sergeant Conley had a detail where he was at a bank on 140 in Milford, and one of the things that he would do while he was at that bank would be to go with a teller when an armored car had delivered to the bank across the street, and bring money back to the bank that the teller worked at. And what had happened this particular day was he was accosted by two men in a car that swooped in on him and the teller. He tried to draw his gun, and he was shot with assault rifles and died at the scene. The teller made it back to the bank. I was one of the people, along with Dave Mattioli, that met at Milford PD with Jim Ring of the FBI, Art Ryle of the FBI, and Bill Coulter, who had been in our office at various times. And I'm not sure if Bill was assigned to our office at the time, but Bill was a good friend of Art's. And Bill and Art knew that there was a fellow by the name of Patrick O'Shea that was back in this area. He was supposed to do a contract killing. They were aware of that, but they didn't know where he was. And ultimately they had pictures of Patrick, and one of the Milford police recognized that picture as a person that lived in the same apartment complex where he was living. And we also found out that a bank teller, a female, lived in that same complex. And we surmised that that bank teller may have talked to Patrick O'Shea. I'm not sure how much, if we actually knew at that moment or not that she had given him the information, but I know we picked her up, brought her in, and so forth. And we did find out that she had conspired with him. She told him that as much as $300,000 went between those banks. And so he had picked up a person that we later find out was John Curry from Middleborough, and they made a plan to hit that bank. We found out where they were staying, and we missed them by hours. We knew the car they were in, and that they were on their way back to probably Oregon, where he'd been robbing banks, and back there. But when we put that teletype out, a trooper on the turnpike named Schultz spotted the car, and he pulled it over in Ithaca. He called for backup, and he called a big snowplow and had it stationed down the street to ram their car if they tried to leave. So he walked up to the car. I listened to his testimony in court, looking at the two of them, asked for license and registration, got that from them, and backed away. Later, when I did the interview with O'Shea in New York, he told me about that. He said, I looked into Schultz's eyes, and quote unquote, I saw me. In other words, he saw a person as dangerous as he was, and he was absolutely correct. Schultz carried sawed-off shotguns, machine guns, hand grenades, you name it, in the back of his car. He was armed for bear. He lived for the day that someone gave him the opportunity to shoot them, and O'Shea picked it out. So at any rate, after he was arrested in New York, he was brought back to the barracks. Mattioli, Ring, myself, Donald Small drove out to New York, and they had me do the interview with O'Shea. And I did my usual low-key approach with him. Didn't tell him what a jerk he was, and hate your guts, and all the stuff that sometimes can be said. But I talked with him like a human being. And during the start of it, he asked me if the sergeant had a family. I go, yeah, Pat, he did. and he told me, I don't like to kill policemen. And anyway, when we did the interview with him, I wrote down verbatim what he said, and ultimately we went over it word for word, and he had me change things, and I marked it and would have him initial as he made changes. And I got a very detailed statement about how he learned about the money crossing the street from his neighbor in the apartment complex, the teller, and how he had the car that he hit the bank with was a car that he was going to drop at a spot and pick up another car that he had stolen that had other plates on it, and how he made his getaway, and how he went back to the hotel overlooking the reservoirs right on Route 9, and how he left there for New York. And I testified in court where he pled guilty to first-degree homicide because he had made a deal with the DA's office that they wouldn't seek a death penalty, and pleading guilty to first degree prohibited him also from charging him with or sentencing to a murder case. So during that time that we were bringing him back and forth from the House of Correction to the courthouse, my lieutenant wanted to be the one that brought him back. We did it at least 4 times, where I'd pick him up with the Furier at the courthouse. I'd make sure there were more chains on him than a snow tire, and I would watch him in the rearview mirror and bring him back to the House of Correction. After he had been sentenced to life in prison for what he did, the FBI or the federal authorities had him transferred to Danbury, Connecticut, where he was held and then escaped from Danbury, Connecticut. I learned through probably art that during that time he was on the loose. He was in a stolen car, and it might have been like Minnesota or someplace in the Midwest, where he got in a car chase with a uniformed policeman. They both crashed, and while the policeman was on the radio, telling them about what had happened, O'Shea is charging his car and shot this guy, shot him once in the head. I don't know if he killed him, but he certainly disabled him. And how he got out of the state was he drove to an airport with a story that he had a relative that had passed away in Tennessee and had to get to the funeral. So he flew out over all the roadblocks, landed in Tennessee, and I believe that was where he encountered 2 more police officers, but left them both handcuffed to each other around a tree.
Jeez.
He was ultimately caught during a very well-attended chase back in Oregon, and I'm not sure what happened to him after that, but I would say he is probably one of the most dangerous people that I ever met. And I knew, transporting him back and forth between the courthouse and the jail, was risky. And, he could have got a key somewhere, for the handcuffs. But again, I was aware of, what he was capable of, so I took as many precautions as I could.
Wow. In 2 paragraphs, summarize your career and your experiences and how you felt about it.
Well, I enjoyed my time in uniform, and the people that I worked with at the Grafton Barracks, the troopers, my supervisors, in particular, I can't say enough about Colonel Canty. He gave me the opportunity, put it right in front of me, and would follow up with me from time to time. I enjoyed my police work there, but I wanted to do investigative work, and all in all, my time at the CPAC was very productive, and my supervisors were good, very good, and they listened to me. After like that time that I found where Christine de Johnville had been murdered, called them and told them. I was right about that. I was right about Ashley Rudner having his head crushed, and any number of other times when I called them, they listened to me. My father ultimately was very proud of my time on the state police, and one time he and my mother were driving back from Florida, had gotten off on the Pike, and they got stopped for speeding, and the trooper that walked up to them looked at the license and said, "Not Bob Meier's father." Yeah. So that was Bob McEwen, and Bob didn't give him a ticket, and that made his day.